late as always, ladies and gents. Welcome back. Holy cow! Let's get this chat in here right away, ladies and gents. Well, hey, look at that, Trish Prue with a $10 super chat at the Pierre Rally. Have a great night, everyone. While we'll watch the podcast when I get home. Awesome. Thank you so much, Trish. That's amazing. Yeah, I got the notification for the Pierre Rally in Vancouver at the Pinnacle. I think it was the Pinnacle Hotel downtown on Hastings. And yeah, I do a live stream every Friday. So yeah, I'm not giving up on you guys to go talk to PP. Unfortunately for PP, sorry, buddy. Come on a Thursday or a Saturday or something next time. I just can't make it on Fridays. I'm preoccupied with the things at that. The show starts at 6:30 Clyde, 6:35 Clyde time. Yeah, I thought I could do it. I was running late, and I'm like, I put it for 6:35. Like I could do this. Nope, 6:37. I started the stream at. So sorry for being late, everybody. It's been a crazy week with all this stuff. Thank you for not using annoying weight room music. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know what that's about. Yeah, that's about the premieres, I guess. The premieres, they do that. I got to come up with a custom thing for premieres. If I do a premiere, just like, hey, guess what? We're doing a premiere soon kind of thing on the wait. They always want you to have a little wait time for people to get into the room before the premiere starts, but there's no wait time on live streams. Dunno how to set that up. Maybe there is a way to do it. Maybe there possibly is, but not while I'm setting up all of this stuff. I can't do it from here. I'm usually running late. Get PP to call into the live show, Clyde. Oh, yeah. I just like pull out my Rolodex. Hey, PP, call me up. Yeah, no, I'm sure it's going to be a great event, and we'll see what happens. Vancouver's having some busy times. There's that, and then there's going to be the March for Children, Million March for Children again next week. I'll be heading down to check that one out and see how well that one goes on. Of course, it's on a Saturday this time, so many more people will probably be able to come out for that. And I'd love to see people's faces out at that rally, at that march. I guess it's not a protest; it's a march. Is there a difference? But I'm hoping to see more people for that. But hey, I wanted to address something before we move on. So I did a video just the other day and was talking about a letter that was sent out from teachers to school kids, talking about, and I'll get into some of that a little bit later. But I showed a video that was supposedly from a teacher, and here's the video that I showed. This one here.
I teach fourth grade, and I think that fourth grade is the perfect age for children to really start exploring their sexual orientation and gender identities. So an activity I did in my class today was I had children go into the closet, literally. I have a closet in my classroom, and I would have the kids one at a time go into the closet, and then they would come out and share with the class what their sexual orientation is. So of course we would celebrate, and I would give the kids that identify as 2SLGBTQIA+, a cupcake, a rainbow cupcake. The kids that came out and said they were straight, I didn't give them anything because they're just contributing to a heteronormative society. Happy National Coming Out.
Okay, so yeah, that sounds pretty enraging, and it actually sounds like something somebody might say these days. Turns out this is a comic. This is a comedian. And I didn't know because I couldn't see where the video. Well, I guess it came from Ketchup. So originally it was posted by Ketchup, just terrible. And then again, see, there's the note. The video being shared. If it is an authentic video of a teacher, the person in the video is Callie Fontana, a creator performing a skit whose profile bio states it is parody. Now, you're supposed to state things that are parody in your bio, blah, blah, blah. Ketchup didn't. Ian Miles Chong, of course, did not. And yeah, I fell for it, and then I spread it. So I'm going to make sure to make notes on that video. It wasn't the main crux of the video. It wasn't the main thing for the video. So I didn't see any point in taking the video down or anything like that. I was definitely, yeah, not funny, right? Not funny. Yeah, but this is what people do for satire. Now, I'm not the only one who's been the victim, or well, I'm not a victim. I just didn't double check, and I'm sorry for that. But again, it wasn't the crux of the whole story. This is the quartering talking about Ian Miles Chong and where he stands. This is 5 months ago.
Why it's such a big deal. So let me show you why Ian Miles Chong is not on your side, and that you should not be supporting people who sit in a foreign country and grift off Americans' pain, America's division. If you're going to do that, at least live here for the most part here. There's a reason that Ian Miles Chong doesn't talk about Malaysian politics. Maybe ask him that. This guy is has had a termite-like existence, a DSP-like existence on the
just noticing it's like commentator within a commentator within the web here. Oh wow. Okay. So yeah. So I got duped. I got duped. Yeah, that's right, in the chat there. So I got duped. Anyway, Jeremy goes into it. He gets into why Ian Miles Chong is not exactly the most reliable source. That's me for falling for it. So absolutely, own up to it, right away. It was not good. It was, I played it off as if it was a real teacher. It wasn't a real teacher, but again, I can get into the story later of that if we have time before Nadine comes on, because I'm looking forward to today's guest. I have been for some time now. Nadine Ness, she's worked with the RCMP in criminal psychological profiling of people who don't like, people who aren't attracted to adults. Let's just put it that way. It's early in the program to be using any sort of words that are very charged. So yeah, she's worked with the RCMP. She's been active in investigating for these individuals and their organizations and profiling bad guys. Maps. Oh, I refuse to use that term. I won't use that term. No, that's to soften the blow of what they are. Yeah, they're sickos. Yeah, right there. So we'll be talking about that later in the show, and I'm looking forward to that. That is something that's going to be coming up ahead of time. Now, later in the show, we've got things coming up ahead of time. Before that, now I want to just say, there's 340 of you in the chat. That'd be great if we could get 340 likes on the stream. That'd be fantastic. It really helps out the channel a whole ton. What it does is it tells the algorithm, hey, we like this thing. We would like you to recommend it to other people in possibly our demographic and people that like this kind of stuff. So get that out there. Get the likes up on the live stream, and it'll hopefully get recommended out there. Michael McLean with a $10 super chat. I hope that the pro-trans activists standing with pro-Hamas Muslims supporters in the various anti-Israel marches won't divide the different groups who are pro-parent rights kids march on October 21st. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that. And this is my stance. I'm going to go, and as soon as I see like Palestinian flags or any other sort of support to another thing, I'm just gonna, observe. I'll be there to report on the stuff. But yeah, people don't want to be a part of that. People want the one message, very straightforward, one message. It's all kinds of people from all over Canada coming together to cities all over the country to say, leave our kids alone. This is, it's not in our interest that you have secret conversations behind our backs to our children about sexuality, and there never is that good, and never will that be acceptable. And people have different religious faiths and things like that. We understand in Canada we have religious freedom in our country, so imposing your will on people's children is infringing on their religious freedoms in that case. And if it's not religious, I mean, I have the right to not be pandered to by some woke group and not have my children subjected to it. That's what the stance is. It's very clear, simple message. It's not okay for adults to talk to children behind their parents' backs and keep secrets. Advocate for secrets with children. So that's where that's coming from, and I'm just gonna stick to it on that one. But I wanted to address some of this stuff because, you know, I got into it a bit this week. I talked about it with Marty as well on the podcast. If you caught that, it's Thursday morning. Every week I do a podcast on Wednesday evenings. Thursday morning it comes out, and that's where I'll do about 30 to 45 minutes talking with Marty up north. He's a great contributor to the conversation and what we're doing around here, and it's amazing. It's amazing, having another regular to have different perspectives and sometimes the same perspective. Clyde is the only news I get from Canada lately in the U.S. I wonder why. Yeah, maybe it's a Trudeau thing. It's unbelievable. 210 likes and climbing. Yes, I'd love to see that. Thank you very much, everybody. Get down there, hit that like button. It's free. It costs nothing, and it helps tremendously. So I really appreciate that. So much going on. So yeah, we got into the story of the act that occurred in Israel last week, and yeah, it was insane. I was on holiday. I was visiting my parents when it took place, and to see in Canada, because I mean this is not a Canadian event, but you feel for people that have atrocities like that happen to them, and I'm not so I wasn't so up to snuff on my Israeli-Palestinian conflict stuff. And information on that. So I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about that now, but that wasn't the point of my main first video. My first video was to talk about people coming out in support of a thing. They have every right to do that. 6 months, no Clyde. I think I'm seized, Clyde. What are you talking about, Ned heads? Just make sure that you watch the videos, because if you fall out, the algorithm falls out for you. So yeah, try to keep up with the videos. I put them out twice a day, 5 days a week. So as long as you watch one or two in the course of a week, the algorithm should constantly be showing you them in your feed. That should be a thing. CBC said day of action. That is not a day of act. It was a day of terrorism. It was awful. Now here's the thing. I wasn't trying to dive into, and what I was trying to do is try to give I always give devil's advocate arguments, and I always give this is what people are saying here, this is what people are saying here. What I was railing against in that video was people that were standing. They were celebrating the thing that happened. And there's no reason to celebrate that. That was an awful act. Just atrocious thing. Chippy's Outdoors, member for 16 months. Wow, you've been around for a while. Good evening. Hope all is well. Hope all is well with you, of course. I'm always notified. That's great. Chat, give a like. Yeah, absolutely. Honk honk, everyone. Jelly Duck member for 17 months. Wow, holy cow! This is amazing, and that's a badge of honor. That's amazing. It's a badge of honor for me to see that I have people that have been members for that long on this channel. It's really really amazing. Demogorgon Ramsey with a $15 super chat. Irony of the day, rhetorical question. Do you think Hamas will use pronouns of snowflakes, Marxist people cheering for them? That's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. So yeah, there was some pretty bad stuff, and it kept going even past my video that I talked about it. So yeah, again, I was there was a lot of people on from both sides saying I can't believe you're standing up for this side, and other people, I can't believe you're standing up for this side. And I even said at the end of my video, I'm not taking sides on this. It's not in my purview to take sides. I know what our government's doing, but you know, I know that there's nuance to every situation, and you know, well, there's a lot of information that, you know, the smoke can clear, and there's a lot of, oh my goodness, people in they're coming out with their fangs, yeah, unbelievably. And it's really difficult to watch. It really is, from my perspective. I was raised Christian. You know, I wasn't raised Jewish or Muslim, even though I had Jewish and Muslim people around me when I was growing up. And there's none of this conflict I ever saw. You know, you read about it in the papers and stuff like that, but you never saw it. Where I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, that, you know, and there was a lot of people from both sides of that just living peacefully amongst each other. So anyway, getting to the thing, there was a lot of people, even after I made the video, from you know, lefty groups that were not only, like, you know, I can understand people coming out, you know, because they support the Palestinian side of the whole thing. That's one thing, and I stated that in the video. But if that's your purview, that's your purview, and you should have every, you know, we believe in freedom of speech, and we're gonna get into that because what France has done. Clyde is a Wings fan. No, I was never a Wings fan. I was always a Toronto fan when I was growing up. But, you know, I was never a huge hockey person, but I always rooted for Toronto because I like the losing team. I mean, it's just a thing. I mean, I'm in Canada right now. We're the losing team, right? The Canadian citizens. It's literally a centuries old quarrel. Too much baggage to even fathom. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So anyway, when Black Lives Matter came out in support of it, and like, not even in support of it, I don't even have the image up just yet. I don't have it. I'm not gonna pull it up. Anyway, it was a picture, a silhouette of a paraglider with the Palestinian flag on it, and I mean, Palestine was never known for their paragliding industry or, you know, tourism. That's never been a thing. That was directly related to the attack that occurred, and that's just abhorrent. That's just abhorrent. I don't care what you're trying to be edgy or what. That is just really awful. It's just really awful, and that's that. Now, for me to see the response and like, you know, like we saw Ben Shapiro, he came out with his fangs out, and the Israeli government stating that they're looking to create maximum damage and not precision in this, and a lot of you know, allusion to maximum civilian, well, they're not saying civilian casualty, but they'll say collateral damage, which is something that's supposed to be avoided, right? In you know, the moral or just theory of warfare. It's just such a horrible situation, and a lot of people are cheering that on too, and I can't really get behind that either. And like I said, I'm not coming at this from a position of supporting either side. I'm really coming from a position, more of a humanitarian position of like, wow, okay, so to get back at this group, they're cutting off water and they're cutting off electricity, cutting off food, and then they're just obliterating the country. Clyde, you missed did you muskie fish in the Detroit River? I did bass fishing in the Detroit River. Believe it or not, there's smallmouth bass, and they're kind of fun to catch as a kid, right? That was the thing. But yeah, so anyway, I don't want to see casualties of you know, innocent civilians in any of this stuff. And of course, the attack was all innocent civilians that were attacked. And well, now it's people getting caught in the crossfire, and I don't like to see that on either side. And I think, and I genuinely do think that Canada should, in any sort of support role, be a peacekeeping service, and we should be, you know, aiding to humanitarian crises, not banging the drums of war because of you know. This is what gets people in these situations is the the crass emotions that people have when tragedy hits, and especially when it's been perpetrated by awful, evil people. Robert McFallon with a $10 super chat. Don't forget, Trudeau cited BLM as a cause he backs while crapping on the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, absolutely. So is he gonna denounce Black Lives Matter now? Is that what's gonna happen? Yeah, we're yet to see any of that stuff, but we'll see. What only time will tell. Colette with the $10 super chat. I caught a brilliant interview with Sami Hamdi on the Thinking Muslim YouTube channel. He's got deep into the inner workings of last Saturday's nightmare. I'll put a link in the general chat on Discord. Yeah, do that. That's really good. Thank you so much. Now, again, we're not going to get to the bottom of this. It's a centuries-old war. This is a conflict that's been going on for a very long time, and a lot of people are very invested in both sides of this thing. And we're not gonna solve this. And that Honor 123 saying only Christianity states not to kill. Well, the Ten Commandments does say thou shalt not kill, but then it kind of goes against that when it comes to other things. But absolutely, Christianity puts the it's a different philosophy, that's for sure. I think Mark Dice put it out there recently, stating that he mentions that the Jews were God's chosen people, but then when Christ came around, he opened it up to everybody who wanted to be saved, and that's less of a direct descendant ethnicity thing, and more of a anybody who wants to be. And I think that's what's led to the spread of Christianity across the planet, and that's a thing. That's a thing. But mind you, even today, the most persecuted religion on the planet is Christians. They're Christians. It's interesting. And like I said, I was raised Christian. I'm not a very religious person. All of this stuff is really, I don't know if it's put more of a sour taste in my mouth about religiosity, or if it's made me more intrigued by it, or I'm not sure. There's still so much to work our way through with this whole ordeal and discover some of the stuff. Nonetheless, the former leader, I'm guessing it was the former leader of Hamas, who claimed he called for a global day of jihad on this day, and or global, what was it, a day of rage? And this is why I put it in the title. It's a global gee whiz, a day of RageBait, because that's what it seems like we actually got on. So if it was a day of rage, it was kind of lackluster. But that didn't stop a lot of the people on the internet to want to share their stuff. Now, this was what came up early in the day. I saw this posted by a bunch of people. Thousands of Hamas supporters have reportedly broken through the blockades and are storming the Israeli border in response to calls for a global day of jihad by former Hamas leader Khalid Mashal. I saw in other places they're reporting that this was in Jordan. I had all kinds of people, the same video clip, saying that it was from different places. This is a thing that people do. They'll get where it's originally from, and then they'll post it with just that little thing on there. Here's breaking news. Jordan. Yeah, here you go. That's why I heard Jordan. So the other guy said blockades storming the Israeli border. Okay, I guess the border of Jordan. That's the thing. What came of this? Don't know. You think if something happened, you would have heard about it in the news? I don't know. Clyde, you shouldn't be commenting on this. You don't know enough about it. I can't comment on the fact that people are trying to get clicks by wanting to show this, yeah, I'm commenting about that. Yeah, people are using this as a thing to get clicks. Now, there were some places, and this was really interesting. I don't understand this. It seems to be quite a contradiction in terms. So Andy pointing this out, I come to you today as a transgender woman, in quotes. Eat me with a $10 super chat. As soon as I heard dead, yeah, it sounded like baby tossed out of, yeah, okay. So as soon as you heard the dead baby comment, the thing there, get the chat up here. Eat me with a $10 super chat, by the way. As soon as I heard dead baby, sounded like baby tossed out of incubators. Hint, hint. What started the Iraq war with a huge lie? So no taking sides either on this huge cluster fudge. Yeah. So Ben Shapiro was going on about that, and even going to the point of like sharing pictures. Yeah, really something else, and we'll get into that. Okay, so here's I just don't get this.
People, I come to you today as a transgender woman, as a queer woman, as a member of the LGBTQ community, and I come to you today to denounce the duplicitous and divisive propaganda spread by the occupation regime.
Okay. So again, I'm not commenting on this, right? Because I don't know enough about the history of it. But there's clearly a conflict, some conflicts of interest going on here, and people fervently taking a particular side on the whole thing. Now, I kind of got a kick out of this video. This is from Ryan Long, and he perfectly sums it up about like how actors are not sure which side they're supposed to support because there's so much contention around this whole thing, and it's just cracked me up.
It's been a few days now. I still haven't weighed in on Israel-Palestine. I honestly don't know who to post. Usually it's easy. BLM, bang. Ukraine, bang. COVID, bang. Hey, did you do your Israel-Palestine post yet? I've never missed a stand. So who'd you go with? I look at my phone, I see a lot of Republicans supporting Israel, so I go, maybe stay away from that. Then I see a lot of the people we've been calling Nazis supporting Palestine. But then get this, the people that we've been calling them Nazis with are happy Israel's getting attacked. Riddle me that. But there really is no easy answer here. Did you do your Israel-Palestine post yet?
No.
What does your manager think of that?
I'm retired.
Oh, you don't have representation right now? Obviously, I was at the front lines of getting mad at Kanye West when he was doing the anti-Semitism stuff. Everyone was thanking me for standing up for the Jewish community. So naturally, I'm seeing this happen. I go, okay, we're back with the Jews again. I see Kylie Jenner post for Israel. I think, okay, the word's in. Then boom, she's getting killed on every angle, so it's not Israel. So I start doing a bit more research. I'm seeing queers for Palestine. And generally, you want to be on the side of the queers. If you look at the things, you're not going to get in trouble if you go with what the queers are saying. Then Mia Khalifa, who we obviously support, is posting with the queers. And she's getting fired from her job. The whole reason I'm posting this is to get in better standing with my job. And by the way, I started to see that your silence is noted post.
I love how he's perfectly summing it up, that people in their opinions on this are purely selfish. They're purely selfish, and how can they position themselves instead of trying to actually have a dialogue about something that's happening in the world. And like I said, and I've said this several times today, and I've said it before, I don't know enough about the conflict to really get on a side or say something like that. I really stand with Canada. That's where my allegiance is. It's with Canada. I don't have another home. I have more allyship with Japan because my wife's family's from there than I do with any other foreign country. There's no way. There's no way. And yeah, okay, yeah, we got peace talks in the chat here. Absolutely. I'm all for, and you know what? If conflict is going to happen, the conflict's going to happen. People are going to comment on it. But what's the most important in this whole social commentary is what Ryan's really nailing in this, is that everyone's doing it for their own benefit. They don't. It's so hard to see people even caring about what's happening in this conflict when this is the reality. This is this selfish, postmodern, glued to your phone, only care about social media and how your image is put out there. roll with the wind, ride the waves of who's got what perspective, and just latch onto it and then go with that. And he's perfectly making fun of this here. Linda Hunter gifted 1 Clyde Do Something membership to the channel. Thank you so much. Kyle, looks like Kyle got that gifted membership. Kyle, better give a big old thanks in the chat. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda, for that. Now, we'll get back into this because it's just hilarity.
So we're running out of fucking time here. If you had to pick, who would you say?
I would stay out of it, like I told you.
But if
I'd
you
stay
kind
out
had
of
to
it.
Choose,
Yeah,
which
there
is
you go.
sort of what a situation I feel like I find myself in. But you don't understand, I gotta post to support one of them. I know to you, it might be like, oh, who cares what he thinks? A buddy of mine booked a Geico commercial from his Ukraine TikTok, so it happens. Feels like we like decolonizing. What is decolonizing? Is that just like killing the people? That's literally what I was saying, man. Because normally it's pretty easy.
I don't know what the answer is.
This one's, I just want to post one of the flags and sort of be done with it. It's tougher than you think. I'm getting yelled at if I post Palestine. I'm getting yelled at if I post Israel. It's starting to feel like, if anything, I'm the victim here.
Oh, perfectly summing it up. Perfectly summing it up with that. It feels like I'm the victim here. Holy cow, I don't know how to make a choice in this whole thing. Right? Stay out of it, like I told you. That's right. Holy cow. This is the situation with this whole scenario. Now, I'm going to take my stance, and my stance is please no harming of innocent people. And when you have people this is what really gets to me, is people cheering on what happened on Saturday. Cheering that on is cheering for the harming of innocent people, and then people cheering on the indiscriminate 6,000 bombs being thrown down at the country over the course of a week. And so many people have been harmed because of that too. And I'm talking innocent people. Yeah, if combatants get it, they get it, right? I don't care. That's the thing, right? And that's warfare, and that's what happens. But when innocent people and the people cheering it on, like, yeah, collateral damage, maximum damage. No, not cool. It's not cool on either way. I can't get behind that. So again, I'm not meddling. I'm not putting myself or inserting myself into what is going on with that conflict, who's right, who's wrong, all that stuff. I'm not getting in on that. I'm not getting in on that at all. What I am getting in on is people on Canadian soil cheering on for people being hurt, like innocent people, bystanders, people who are not involved in this thing being hurt by this. But yeah, Ryan Long absolutely summing this up beautifully. And I'll leave a link. I'm gonna put a link for this in the chat so everybody can, if you're watching this after the fact, you can watch the chat replay and you'll see, boom, there's a link, it pops up, and you can go check out Ryan Long's video talking this whole video, watch it in its whole length. I'd love to have Ryan Long on the show one day. He seems like a fun guy to have a conversation with, but that's for another night. That's for another night. Let's move on. So yeah, there's just weird things happening out there. But not only that, we have people who are, people just trying to get clicks, right? So people are just trying to get their clicks. Happening now in New York after Hamas leader calls for a day of jihad on Friday the 13th and tells Muslims to take this to the streets in protest against Israel. Arm yourselves. Be prepared for anything. Right? So this is supposed to be that. This is supposed to be that. And then they even put a header at the bottom. A car carrying a man waving the Palestinian flag abruptly and dangerously, stopping traffic and doing donuts. Well, if you read the notes, and this is why I love Twitter notes, because people will get in there and actually write stuff. It's not a Palestinian flag. It's most likely the Puerto Rican flag. Sources include the Puerto Rican flag and close-up screenshots from a different video taken from another angle for comparison. And it wasn't even the same. It wasn't even the same. This is old footage, and this is how it works. This is what people on the internet do, and you get duped by it. Just like the person the other day, I got duped. with a teacher. It was a parody of what a teacher was doing. Scott with the $2 super chat, queers for Palestine in quotes. Yeah, right. Yeah, queers for Palestine. What else do we have? We had that, and then Ryan Long's video. We have this one. Urgent. The International Day of Jihad has officially begun. Today, attacks are being witnessed all across the United States. Please do whatever you can to leave your home. This is a mosh pit. This is a mosh pit at a music show. This is the kind of stuff that's being shown. Why doesn't Gaza have running water? Well, for starters, Hamas takes the water pipes and then uses from them to make rockets and wage genocidal wars in Israel. So this is a piece of work. I don't know how true it is. Now, there is community notes, but wow, it's extremely loud. Just going to turn the audio off completely. So they show rockets going off, and then they show what looks like soldiers pulling water pipes out of the ground. So these are supposed to be water pipes that they pulled out of the ground so they can construct rockets with them. And then, because like the premise here is that they can't get tubes. They can't get tubes. They can't get their hands on tubes, but somehow they can get their hands on the propellant and explosives that are needed to put in these tubes. But hey, that's a thing. And then they have the equipment to cut them and machine them to the proper sizes. And then obviously the equipment for launching them. They have all the metals for making that kind of equipment. And I don't know. It's hard to buy this stuff. And when you're in these situations, there's just nothing but propaganda out there. And that one really kind of made me go, what? Then you look at the community notes. Although there are numerous sources that show Hamas have used water pipes to make rockets, there's no evidence that they have used all water pipes and do so. That is why they are without water. So, people saying it's misleading. Gaza doesn't have running water because supplies are no longer being provided to Gaza by who controls the water, and that's what's going on there. Now, other people are taking to throw a little bit more comedy on this fire. The Babylon Bee coming out saying Elon Omar wakes up early to see what presents she got for Global Day of Jihad. Okay, that kills me. That's funny. These guys are pretty good at that. Another one trying to get clicks. Day of Rage. Migrants steal police vehicle in Sweden. And with all the correct hashtags, go into the community notes. This video is from April 2022. The shouting of that is added. So it was, and they give the links to the appropriate stuff. So more bunk, more bogus stuff. Americans, when they hear tomorrow is Hamas Day of Jihad, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny because, behind, what was it, the Japanese emperor, when they were talking about invading the United States, the possibility of that, he said it would be impossible because behind every blade of grass is a rifle. Because, yeah, that's what it would be like. And I think we need to reintroduce that culture here in Canada and perhaps Israel as well. The Israelis have pretty strict gun control. This is the sentiment of a guy who heard about the Day of Rage.
Definitely concerns me a little bit, you know what I mean? But, I pack that thing too. So he come around this way, you will get caught. Definitely.
Okay. Now, if this was him actually talking about that day, I don't know. Maybe that's just a clip concerning something else. But if that is, then that's a comical effect. Babylon Bee, again, with another headline. Texans strangely unconcerned about Global Day of Jihad. So, that's a thing. It was Yamamoto who said that, Clyde. Thank you, Shockwave. Okay, so yeah, there was a quote. So Jake Shields sharing this on Twitter. It's anti-Semitic if you don't want the genocide in Gaza. And this is in response to what France has done. France has banned pro-Palestinian protests and vowed to protect Jews from resurgent anti-Semitism. Now, this is obviously a free speech issue. It would be a free speech issue. What do you even say to this? Yeah, I can't agree with what they have to say. I don't, but you can't, it's always, free speech is one of those things where it's like, you always have to stand up for the most abhorrent things that are said. You know what I mean? You have to stand up for really, really bad people that want to say really bad things, because those are the things that people want to ban usually. Now, right now, they want to ban parents from being able to take to the streets and say we don't want our kids to be subjected to sexual stuff in their schools without our knowledge. But in France, it's one of those things. But free speech, I think, is very important, and that's unfortunately, we gotta stand up for people's free speech, even when it's bad things that they're saying. But this was Lib Fails tweeted this one out. Watch, Christians take over a mall. Notice how they're not looting or assaulting any people. Amazing. And apparently, and I don't know because it's so hard to verify anything anymore, but this is from today, as people were doing the global day of rage. Okay, so that's that scene. So that's a thing that's pretty impressive. Now, if you saw this trending, you would see this, and I couldn't believe this when I saw this. So if you see these 4 things trending together, Day of Jihad, Gaza, Go Rocket, and Elizabeth May, and I told you that one of these things has to do with the does not have to do with the Palestinian conflict. Which would you choose? Now get in the comments section. Tell me which one has nothing to do with this conflict at all. I'll give you time. I'll give you a minute to get on there and tell me which one of these, just type it in the chat, which one of these things has nothing to do with the Palestinian conflict with the Israelis, or any sort of terrorist attacks, or any sort of militants, or any of that. Okay, here comes the comments. Here it comes. They're coming now. What are most of the things? What are most of the things? Even a super chat. Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. Christine Van Gyn put out an amazing video on this topic today. She is an amazing Canadian patriot. I've been trying to get in touch with Christine because I'd love to have her on the show, because I want to showcase some of the stuff that she's been working on, and the Canadian Constitution Federation. I believe that's the name of their Constitution Foundation. What they've been doing, and the amazing work that they've been doing. So yeah, if anybody has any contact with her, let her know. I've emailed her a few times, but I know how things end up in spam boxes and whatnot. And she doesn't have open DMs on Twitter. So hey, we'll try to get this one out there. Okay, so of the trending topics, Day of Jihad, Gaza, Go Rocket, and Elizabeth May, you would be surprised to find out that it's actually Go Rocket that has nothing to do with this conflict. In fact, I didn't know this, but Go Rocket apparently is a hockey team from Quebec. And that's a thing. So people were cheering for that team, and they were like, okay, yeah, go for it. I don't follow Quebec hockey. That's the thing. No, in fact, Elizabeth May is all over this one. So here she is. Oh, this is obviously a Photoshop, but this is, Tokyo Rosie making fun of her. Elizabeth May of Canada's Green Party releases a statement about terrorist attacks in Israel during odd celebration from downtown Mississauga. So that's obviously not real. But so yeah, never forget, Elizabeth Say said, I take my marching orders from the permanent representative of Palestine to Canada. These types of people are in the Canadian government. Yes. So let's make sure the audio is not too loud here. And this is what she had to say. This is a while ago.
We take our marching orders, I do anyway, I shouldn't speak for everyone. I take my marching orders from the permanent representative of Palestine to Canada. We take our marching orders.
Why? She represents the Green Party. What is that all about? What is it that she's after in all of this? Now, oh, why did I not have this clip up right away? Let's just type in Elizabeth May, and the clip comes up almost immediately when you type in hers. Now, this is a clip from her from it's Marty Up North, the first one that popped up. And this is a clip from her when she got loaded, I guess, at some award ceremony. She was given an award. And so here she is on the stage, loaded. I mean, it just speaks for itself. This is craziness.
I have a completely deranged and there is no sequitur. This is a non sequitur. Do you guys ever wake up with old theme songs from former black and white TV shows that you never thought your kids would ever see, and they're running through your head? Like every now and then I wake up.
Those were the days. Yeah, no, maybe. That's one of those. So, oh, that might be one of those shows. Anyway, let's get on with her clip.
Thinking about, Lisa, you've got to wait. Lisa, I wake up thinking about a horse is a horse, of course, of course. This morning I wake up thinking this. Why am I thinking this?
This poor lady is tasked with taking loaded Elizabeth May off the stage. It's just so embarrassing. Holy cow. Scott with the $10 super chat. Just because we have freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of speech doesn't have consequences. You can shout your beliefs as loud as you want, but you must be prepared to be rebutted for it as well. I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, freedom of speech always comes with consequences. Yeah, if you spout craziness, people are gonna treat you in kind like a crazy person. So yeah, you always keep that in mind. But I'll always stand up for free speech. People have a right to free speech, but you're not allowed to advocate for violence. That is a thing. There is a limitation to free speech in that advocating for violence or making directions for violence. And you know what? Like I have a platform here, and I realize this, and I take a lot of responsibility when it comes to this. There's a lot of people that watch this show. There's a lot of people tune in every week. Millions of people every month. It's incredible how many people tune into this show. And this is, I feel, a tremendous responsibility when it comes to that. I have to be careful of what I say or advocate or talk about. These are very important things. You can't just go say whatever you feel like willy-nilly and expect that there's no consequences for that. I know that people, they call us influencers because, some people they have influence to this. I hope more that I'm giving a good conversation to people, starting a dialogue and getting people involved in having more of these dialogues, as opposed to being a direct influence on others. But yeah, this is why they call people influencers, because when you have an audience, you really do need to take that responsibility to say, like, I need to watch my mouth. I need to be careful about the things that I say. I can't just go, saying things in the heat of the moment. Yeah, you got to be careful. But yeah, freedom of speech. I'll always protect freedom of speech, even if it's bad speech, because it's always what people perceive as bad speech. I mean, like I said, parents are marching the streets and they're being told that their speech is bad just because they want to stand up for their children and the rights of the parents to dictate what kids are to be seen or talked about or talked to when it comes to sexual improprieties and things, sexual things of a sexual nature. Anyway, we're going to continue with this clip because this is just embarrassingly funny with Elizabeth May here. It's just
do you guys wonder?
Liz,
hang on.
we wonder why you're thinking that too, but
Wait, you know what? Do you guys remember the theme song? Welcome back. Who knew Cotter was spelled K-H-A-D-R? Welcome back, Omer Cotter. It matters to say it. Welcome back, Omer Cotter.
Yeah.
You're home.
Yikes.
does it strike you as unusual?
Oh, yikes.
There's a lot unusual about your speech, Liz, but we're going to take off.
There's a lot unusual
Omer
about your
Cotter,
speech, Liz.
You got more class than the whole fucking cabinet. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Why would you go and say stuff like that? Honestly, why would you go and say stuff like that? I'm gonna get into this in one other story, and then we got a guest coming into the show. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of finagling here to make sure that we get to this. Now, the next story I was gonna talk about, and this is well, this is your friendly neighborhood garrison. I'm gonna show this clip to all you guys out there. This is Mark Garretson. I know he's a fool, and he likes to shoot his mouth off and say all kinds of stuff, but he kind of irked some people with this particular clip, and I'm just gonna play it so you can hear what he had to say.
In virtually every public opinion survey, the top 3 issues that matter most to Canadians are the cost of living and affordability, healthcare, and climate change. But what some don't realize, and conservatives don't want to admit, is that climate change significantly impacts our health and the economy. Extreme weather events caused by climate change, like floods, droughts, and wildfires, kill crops, disrupt agricultural production, halt supply chains, and lead to increased prices across all sectors. These events also cause direct harm to our health through poor air quality, extreme temperatures, and their associated health implications. That's why having a plan to fight climate change is so important, and our pollution pricing system is just one part of it. Putting a price on pollution is widely recognized as the most efficient means to reduce emissions while also driving innovation. Just look at the clean EV supply chain that's being developed right here in Canada. Pollution pricing makes sure big polluters pay their fair share and consider the cost of pollution and account for those costs in their daily decisions. Pollution price rebate payments also put more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 households than pay into it, with low and middle income households benefiting the most. This year in Ontario,
is just great.
an individual
Actually, right
will
now.
receive $488 through the Climate Action Incentive, and a family of 4 will receive a total of $976. These tax-free payments arrive quarterly in your bank account, and
We're gonna tax the crap out of you. We're gonna tax thousands of dollars and then give you back hundreds of dollars and tell you that you're better off. Holy cow! This is the
fall of 2023 payments will be arriving today, October 13th. Despite what Pierre Poilievre would have you believe, the price on pollution only contributes 0.15% to inflation.
We also only contribute 1.6% of all CO2 on the globe, and we're impoverishing our own people to get what another 0.1 out of that thing. Where are you on China? Where are you on India? And where are you on? Are you actually concerned about this? Really? Are you really concerned?
Pierre Poilievre and conservative politicians continue to spread lies to score cheap political points at a time when households are struggling to make ends meet. But we'll keep putting money back in the pockets of Canadian families while fighting climate change.
So Marty, well, he upset a lot of people. This is a really good one. This is get out of here, Mark. See how nobody disagrees with my tweets? This is how to block comments on Twitter for dummies. Because if you go down to this, who can reply? Only accounts that Mark Garretson follows. Of course, that's always the strategy from these guys that put that out there. Now, this is in reply to a tweet that Mark Garretson put out saying, did I create a ruckus?
I claim that the carbon tax does not impact inflation, and now everybody appears to be an expert out there in the field.
It does,
So
in
I thought
fact.
maybe it would be beneficial to listen to what an actual expert has to say.
Okay. We're going to get into this. So we're going to listen to an actual expert, but he's making a direct claim. He says that carbon taxes won't impact prices in an inflationary way. Now, this is a tax that hits everyone down the chain, right? If you look at, if you were to look at GST, everyone gets a rebate for it until the end users. The end users, the only ones paying that. Demo Gargon Ramsey with a $15 super chat. Hearing that buffoon makes me want to change the name of the NDP Liberal Coalition to the New Party for Communism, or NPC. Oh, I like that. The NPC party. Yeah, 'cause they are for sure non-player characters when it comes to, holy cow, that's funny. Now, so it's a compounding tax. So everyone that uses the fuel pays the tax, and it gets sent down the chain. So if you've got a supply chain that everybody uses fuel along that supply chain, every single thing gets taxed for the carbon. So it's a compounding tax, and it's inflationary, tremendous, like exponential if inflationary type of tax. So who are we going to listen to that's going to say tell us different?
How do the annual increases in carbon pricing impact inflation?
The contribution that's making to inflation one year to the next is relatively small. If you want me to put a number on it, it's in the range of 0.15%.
That's Tiff Macklin, the governor of the Bank of Canada. Now, before we start questioning Tiff Macklin and whether or not we should believe what he has to say, I thought it would be important to point out that I'm not the only one that listens to what Tiff has to say and quite often quotes him. A number of my conservative colleagues do the same thing.
Don't take my word for it. Tiff Macklin, the governor of the Bank of Canada,
said what?
The Bank of Canada governor agrees and says, quote,
Tiff Macklin, the Bank of Canada governor, agrees that...
And that's not me saying that. That's Tiff Macklin, the governor of Bank of Canada.
Bank of Canada...
Yeah, okay, so a bunch of them quoted Tiff Macklin. I'm going to quote Tiff Macklin with his own words.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused an unprecedented fall in economic activity in Canada, and the recovery will require considerable monetary policy support. Our overriding message to Canadians is that the bank will be there to provide monetary stimulus for an extended period to support the recovery and to return inflation to the 2% target. Interest rates are very low, and they're going to be there for a long time. We recognize that...
This was a year ago, folks. This is a year ago. Are you going to quote this guy? Are you going to quote this guy, Garrettson? This guy said interest rates are going to remain low for a very long time. And he goes on to tell you to, yeah, buy that house, buy that truck, go buy those things that you wanted to buy.
Canadian businesses are facing an unusual amount of uncertainty. And so we have been unusually clear about the future path.
We want you to be certain that we're certain about this thing that a year later we went completely backwards on and raised the prices to 5% interest rates. Come on.
For interest rates. If you've got a mortgage,
go on and buy
or
it.
If you're considering to make a major purchase,
go on and get it.
Or you're a business and you're considering making an investment, you can be confident that interest rates will be low for a long time. Low interest rates make spending and investment more affordable, and spending and investment will support the recovery. That would be our message to Canadians.
And we're getting the opposite. We're getting less spending because we have less money to spend, higher interest rates, which means we have higher costs to pay back these debts. This is where we're going with it. This is insane. Now, Marty up north, he had a reply to this, a retort, if you will. I'm going to play just a few seconds of this. I'll leave a link in the chat here, so you can go watch his full rant. He comes on the channel. He rants all the time anyway, so I'll just give a little bit of a play for this.
I see you're at it again, man. You know, I love what you say right there in the top of your tweet, that you've created ruckus and you're going to double down and create more ruckus. You know, Canadians right now, we just went through a week that was extremely stressful. Canadians across the country are stressed by the fact that there's a war going on in the Middle East. We have people, family, friends that are in Israel trying to get out, or in Gaza or in Palestine. And it's very stressful. And we'd like to have a voice of reason from our politicians. But you, my friend, are here on the internet doubling down on ruckus, and proud of it, you know? And you're such a coward that you're putting out comments on the internet, but then you're not allowing us to comment back. So I'll do it this way, since I can't do it any other way, because you're a coward, but you're not going to stop us.
There he goes. He's just saying, like, you know, you shut us out of the comments, so we can't say anything back. Anyway, here's a link to that. I'm going to continue with this.
And, you know, we want the country is is a shit show right now. So inflation is at a 20-year high. We can't afford new young Canadians can't afford houses because interest rates are sky high. The cost of living is going up. We have division in the country like never before. We have all sorts of problems. You guys are picking a fight with India, the largest democracy on the planet. Apparently, we have terrorists that have been on our soil assassinating other people. You guys gave a standing ovation to a Nazi in the House of Commons. I mean, the list goes on. So your government is an absolute fiasco. Trudeau is somewhere in hiding right now, and it's apparent. We get it. We get it. You're the lapdog. You're the guy who's trying to distract us from all these things. Well, it's not working. We're not buying your bullshit, Mark. So be a man, turn on the comments on your tweets, and stop publishing propaganda. And be a man, and be a Canadian politician, and represent your people, and act as a voice of reason in these times of stress and uncertainty, instead of being out there promoting ruckus.
Okay, I said I wasn't going to play that whole clip, but I played that whole clip. Marty sure has a lot to say when it comes to that stuff. Holy cow, calling him out, absolutely calling him out on just absolute BS. People get it. People see through this whole thing with the carbon tax. They see through all of the measures that the Liberal government and the NDP coalition have been pulling on us. Trying to rug pull us economically. Yeah, we're about to see a housing bubble pop, and a lot of Canadians are worried about that. So yeah, there is ruckus, and there's going to be ruckus, and Canadians are definitely looking forward to an election. That's for sure. We're going to be looking forward to that in the next little while. But I want to introduce my guest. My guest has been doing some fantastic work online on Twitter. I've showcased her videos on my Twitter account, got information out there, and I can't express how important it is for us to be discussing these topics and getting this kind of information out to people, and to have it come from such a reputable source is what I really want to put out there. And I can't, without further ado, my guest this evening, Nadine Ness. Thanks for joining me tonight. Oh, we got you. You're muted on your end.
I think my camera is really slow. Is it like stopping and going for you?
No, it looks great. It looks great on my end.
Okay. It's not freezing. Okay. It's freezing on my end.
No freezing. No freezing. You can probably see awesome. on the side, like the shared picture. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Sometimes it freezes and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends whose show I'm on or what program, or if my internet is fast enough.
Fair enough. So yeah, you're in what province and with rural internet?
I'm in Saskatchewan. I actually have Starlink. So it's not if it's good enough, it's how many of my kids are watching TV on their iPads.
Right.
So that's usually what slows it down. Yeah.
So
but the last time it wasn't the internet per se too. It's the camera. I have like a fancy camera, and sometimes it's too much for my laptop.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I know exactly what you're talking about there. So for introductions, for the people that don't know who you are and what work you're doing some important work, and I really wanted you to come on the show, and I was really excited that you accepted to come on and talk about what you've been doing. Can you give an introduction for what it is, who you are, and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So I'm the president of an organization called Unified Grassroots. We're a nonprofit organization that was started just at like the beginning of COVID, I guess, or maybe not at the beginning, like the September after it got here. And we were a group of parents. Even how it got started, I wasn't looking to lead anything or to start anything. What happened was there was a lady in a town close by that said, when's the next school board meeting? And for me, the COVID mandates and stuff had really affected my daughter negatively. So So anyways, I messaged her and I said, are you on the same side as me? Back then, that was a taboo topic that nobody could talk about, right?
Yeah.
Now we've got this. But so, yeah. So, and then turns out there was a few of us that were concerned. And then we ended up, I said, let's meet at my house. So I said, I'll start a Facebook group just to share my address. And thinking there'd be like maybe 5 to 10 parents there. And within 24 hours, we had 850 parents within our school division, just word of mouth, join that private Facebook group. Yeah. And then so that was Wednesday. By Saturday, which is when we were supposed to meet at my house, we ended up renting a hall. And by then we grew to 2,500. So just within a few days, just within our school division. And then we did a presentation in front of the school board. My husband, who's a doctor, came and presented as well onto the negative effects that some of these mandates have. They focus so much on COVID, but they didn't focus on the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And parents didn't really get a say. We couldn't even talk and address these issues. So yeah, so that's how we started back in, I think it was 2021. Yeah. And then from there, we were very effective at influencing change in our province. So we would be what you consider, I guess, a freedom group per se, although we don't do very much protest. We did participate with the convoy, but we're more of a lobbying and strategic group. So we do a lot of campaigns and stuff. So in the province of Saskatchewan, we were the most effective group at gathering the entire province. So in the freedom movement, it's very splintered, but in Saskatchewan, it just so happened because we were the hub, I guess, of all the doctors. So basically, when our group started, a lot of doctors reached out. They're like, do you know of any other ones who are concerned? And then we ended up being the hub for the nurses. Same with the school teachers. So we started all these small groups within different professions, police officers, firefighters, social workers. So we had all these small groups that were kind of trying to fight their unions and stuff together. So we grew throughout the province, just word of mouth that way. So it's not even like we were reaching out to freedom groups. It just grew because we were offering, I guess, help for people who were struggling, I guess, when it came to their jobs and stuff and the mandates. But anyways, that was like a few years ago. And then we started speaking up about what's happening again, parents' voices not having a say into the kids' education, which is what we first started as. And then it was just natural that we kind of went that way. And our group is also the one who brought to light certain policies that there were in some of the school boards. So the gender policy where the parent wouldn't get notified if the child doesn't consent, that was a policy that was implemented in several school boards, including my own. So most of the parents didn't even know that existed. So we exposed it, brought it to light, and then started lobbying for change. And it just so happens I'm a former police officer. So, and I'm not just any type of police officer. I was specifically trained on how to profile child sex offenders. So those are pedophiles and sex offenders who not necessarily are pedophiles, but they still offend on children. So there's a long story to explain the difference, but anyways.
Right. Well, and that's what puts you on my radar, because I mean, we'd been following each other just, through mutual follows on Twitter for some time. But then what caught my eye was the video that you published. And this is the video. I shared this one out. I put it out there saying, like, everyone needs to watch this. This is by far most important one you need to see in this current circumstance. With you can see on the screen there showing NAMBLA, but what you did was you opened my eyes to stuff that I didn't even know or consider that were part of this whole situation with children being taught unusual things in school, and why that's why it's a deeper seated or rooted issue than most of us maybe even thought.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I started looking into like these organizations, so I got into looking at the Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity before the Lumsden, Saskatchewan incident. That I'll talk about that shortly, but that was in that happened in June. But before then, there was an organization called Not Just a Tip. So their website, notjustatip.ca. It is that
like that
vulgar.
the innuendo. That's the innuendo. We all know what that innuendo is.
Yeah, so that's an organization that's trying to revamp the sex education that's happening in the schools all over Canada. So Regina, Saskatchewan was one of the pilot project, and I believe there are some in BC as well, Ontario.
And what age children are they trying to target with an organization with a name like that?
Well, I don't know how low they'll go for age, but what they're trying to do is revamp the education system. So what they consider the current one is a shame-based sexual education system. They want to revamp it to a pleasure-based sexual education. So it would change all of sexual education from as early as they teach it. So I don't know in BC what age it is, or even in Saskatchewan, it seems like they start quite young, but it's not necessarily sexual education. They call it health education.
Can you explain what the difference is? Like, so what? Okay, shame-based versus pleasure-based. What are the connotations there?
So I do explain
when
it in the
when I
video.
went to school, it wasn't very shameful. It was kind of weird and awkward, but it was a biology lesson. I learned like what my body does and stuff like that, and the stuff that are happening. It's not unusual. All kids go through this at that time, and don't worry about it. The boys have the usual one. It's like, I don't want to go up and write something on the chalkboard. I'm wearing my sweatpants, and I got excited kind of thing. And these are like embarrassing things for kids, and I didn't see it so much as shame-based. It's embarrassing. There's embarrassments, embarrassing things for children, but they're calling it shame-based as opposed to what?
So basically they're saying that the current way of teaching shames kids into not doing certain things that they feel kids should be allowed to do. And they also say that it's not geared towards LGBTQ. So for example, the Catholic school, they'll teach about abstinence as being the best form of not getting pregnant kind of thing. So they don't want that taught. They don't want any shame or any negative association to it. So they even talk about, we got a recording from sent to us from the teacher or the people teaching this course is to teachers. And it's with the Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity, as well as notjustatip.ca. So they explain what the difference is. So they actually talk about how telling or discouraging kids from being sexual active at a young age is shame-based. That's not good. You want to encourage curiosity. You want to encourage children to be being sexually curious. They actually talk about that in this recording that I got. And they also talk about discouraging pregnancy as well as a negative thing. It's a shame-based thing. So it's
yeah, you want to discourage pregnancy at a young age. I mean, that's a given.
Well, this is the same organizations that's working with Planned Parenthood. They're also the ones who are pushing the abortion, right? So there's other solutions to teen pregnancy. So
I find that one actually that one's pretty disturbing, because I mean, anyone who knows real biology and reproductive systems, you can't just use abortions as birth control. There's damage that occurs in that procedure that could jeopardize future pregnancies. I mean, you're talking about changing the reproductive health of a young child for haphazard.
And that's just the physical part. You're not talking about the emotional aspect of abortion. I didn't know this was going to be a pro-life talk, but
no, I'm not.
Okay.
So I'm not. I try not to push too much agendas, but like, yeah, no, I just that takes me by surprise that's a thing. I mean, even if you're pro-choice, you shouldn't encourage people to use it as a form of birth control. It's just. It's damaging to the subject, right? It's damaging to the person.
I'm not necessarily saying they were using that in there, but they're basically teaching that it's the same organization. So I could see how they go that way, but they didn't specifically say that in the
Right.
recording.
Okay,
They're
that's fair.
basically just saying that there's other ways of dealing with teen pregnancy. So, but talking about abstinent, that's a shame-based sexual education. So they discourage that. So if you go and look at the basis behind the pleasure-based sexual education, which I talk about in my video, it's right in line with NAMBLA. So I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. So one of the biggest ways that sex offenders or pedophiles will manipulate their children, the kids that they abuse, is they used arousal as consent. So in their mind. So they will, sorry, I hope this is okay because it goes quite detailed, but people need to understand this.
Well, you might have to
They'll
change
use-
some words. Like I noticed that you did. You used the word belching instead of the word that it rhymes with in your video. If we
Yeah, I
do
won't
things
use-
like that.
Yeah, I'll be very careful with how I talk, but if you have people who are listening who are former victims of sexual abuse, we're going to be talking about subjects that might trigger
Well,
them.
that might be
so I'm just letting them know.
a warning right now.
Yeah,
So if
so-
you've dealt with this.
Yeah, so consider this a warning but yeah, one of the ways they manipulate children is the body's natural response to stimulation is arousal at times, not always, but they'll use that to manipulate the child, to make the child think that what's happening is okay and make the child think that they want it. So it's one of the ways they groom children.
Yeah.
So that's the
It's a form of
perfect example
gaslighting.
of grooming.
It's gaslighting in the sense of like the movie that the term came from
Mhm.
was, the guy was manipulating the gaslights, turning them down and telling the woman she was crazy for thinking that
Mhm.
that the gaslights were dimming, but it was him doing that. And this they're telling children that, oh, because you felt pleasure in this, that you liked it.
Well, I don't know if they're telling it, but it's one of the ways they get to do what they do. And it's one of the ways they really mess with the child's mind. So not every offender is like that. You have pedophiles that will install fear, pain, but you have the other ones that make the child think that they want it. And so it's one of the things that they use to be able to get to the point where they go. And also why there's so much secrecy, because there is shame attached to that as well. But the reason I'm explaining this is pleasure-based sexual education is basically teaching if something feels physically good to you, it is good, which is the exact thing that the groomers will teach those children. So I really don't think that should be taught in school. I think the current sexual education that we have is adequate, but changing that mindset and teaching a child if you're getting aroused, if it physically feel good, it is good, that needs to stop. So, it was one of the things that I have a huge problem with, because again, it's one of the biggest things that pedophiles will use to manipulate and abuse children. So, and it's one of the reasons some children won't come forward, because they have that shame attached. Well, why did I get aroused, or why did it feel good, right? So they'll feel like that extra shame attached that they wouldn't if it was someone who was forcing themselves with fear, anger, violence, right? The other way, you often will see children not come forward because of that. So that whole mindset that they're trying to switch sexual education with that, I have a huge problem with that. And that's because of my personal experience and as well as my professional experience.
Well, yeah, let's get into that. Actually, your professional experience. You mentioned briefly, and I'm not asking you to get into detail, but you were the victim of sexual improprieties when you were a child, and moving forward, that was a big motivation for you to get involved in the RCMP and learn how to profile these people. Now, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I was 8. The grooming started a little bit younger than that, but 8 when the abuse actually started, and 10 when I came forward. Around 10, like I don't know the exact date. I tried to go back to my dad and ask, but because I was so young. But and the man was charged. He confessed to everything, and he was convicted. He had some jail time, and like I even went to police station. I remember getting interviewed. I remember the old big cameras and the red light. Like I still remember being in that interview room as a child.
That must have been terrifying.
But and just the terrifying part was before that.
Okay.
Because I felt like because no one knew, I was always afraid it was going to get worse. It was going to get worse. So when I got into the room, I knew it was going to stop. So it wasn't actually terrifying. So that at that point, I don't remember it. I just remember this peace and this calm, and the female cop that was there was really nice and stuff. So it made it really an okay experience. It was a little bit embarrassing because you're talking to random strangers about what's happened to you and very sexual things. But yeah, just looking back, she made me feel really comfortable, and I felt comfortable enough to say exactly what happened and in details and stuff. And thankfully, I didn't have to testify in court because he confessed to everything in an interview with the police, and then he pled guilty, and then he was convicted. And after that, I always kind of thought I wanted to do something to help. So I want to talk about this too. If some of your viewers may have been abused and they didn't come forward or felt too afraid or ashamed, when he got convicted, it offered a lot of healing. It offered a lot of sense of, what happened wasn't right and you got justice. So sometimes when you don't have justice, the healing's a lot harder in the long run. But for me, I always knew what was going on was wrong. And just the fact that he got convicted made it even more of a solid, okay, yeah, it was wrong. And it kind of showed the rest of the family as well. Because I remember back then, so he was an elder in the church, in the Catholic Church, whatever you call them. I don't know if they're called elders or whatever, but like they didn't really deal with it. They just swept it under the rug. And a lot of the families, sometimes that will happen in a community. They'll be like, how could that have happened? And they won't believe it because it's so awful. So I think once we got that conviction, it was just like, see, now you can believe it. I'm not looking for attention or anything like that. It actually did happen. I wouldn't lie about something like that. But so that was healing in itself, because there was a lot of rumors and stuff, and I would hear whispers or my grandparents talking with other strangers and stuff. And if you're an adult and your child has come forward, don't whisper around them. They likely will hear what you say and can really affect them as well in the long run. So, but yeah, so that it was really healing. And I'm saying that because if there's someone who's watching who's been a victim, I highly encourage them to come forward, even if it's been long in the past. So a pedophile or a sex offender, by the time he's dies, will likely have around 150 victims. So if you don't come forward, or if a person doesn't come forward, there's a chance they'll offend on other children. So if I can encourage anyone to do that, it is hard, but you can save lives that way. So, but yeah, so after that, I wanted to be a cop, but I was too short. I'm 5'1", so I'm not very tall. And back then they had a height limit, and then they removed that. So, and then I started thinking maybe I'll apply. But before then, I actually worked as a volunteer for the North Battleford Sexual Assault Center as a crisis line worker. So if somebody was a victim of rape, they would call this crisis line, or sometimes they just call the crisis line for other reasons. So I volunteered doing that for a couple years before, and then I got in the RCMP, so I had to stop. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so I became a cop, and my goal was to work with victims of sex offenses. So sexual assault victims, whether children or adults. And in the RCMP, there's only one position that you can do that. That's in the ICE unit, so the Internet Child Exploitation Unit. So we don't have like Saskatoon Police or whatever bigger police force will have units, but in the RCMP, that's kind of the only unit. So, but anyways, I took courses specifically so that I could work in that unit one day. And then
And that puts you pervy to a lot of the stuff that these people are using on the internet. Symbolism, the phraseology of how they talk to each other, things like that, correct?
Yeah. So in the course, we were trained to profile sex offenders. So we were trained anything that you would need in an investigation. So some of it is profile. So we would learn about different types of sex offenders, what to look for. So what are red flags? Like if you have a victim that comes forward of a crime, but you don't know who committed it, just their testimony could give you a lot of clues of what type of offenders they are. Sometimes even what kind of work they would do, like, so things like that, really profiling. And then one of the things we also learned is if we're doing a search warrant, what to look for in a search warrant. So we learned about the logos, code language, things like that. So, and that's why when I saw what was on the Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity's website, huge alarm bells came off because those were the logos that we were taught to look for.
Well, yeah,
so,
let's
which
talk
I
about that.
Up.
So I have some
Yeah.
of these logos on screen here, and we can see some of these. What are these, and what are the significance to some of these logos?
Yeah, so the top left one is the man-boy love association. So man-boy love. So it's a man that's attracted to a boy. The one on the right is man-girl love, or girl. It can be girl. It can be like a female adult as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it just means they're attracted to females. And then the bottom one is the same thing on the left, but it can be different age. So you'll have prepubescent and you'll have postpubescent. So that means prepubescent is before they've hit puberty. Postpubescent is after they've hit puberty. And then the butterfly one is, it doesn't matter which sex. So they'll offend on either female or male. So some have preference, some don't. So sadistic offenders, the ones that use fear of violence, usually they're more likely to not matter which age or which,
because it's not sexual in nature. Is it they just want to?
Well, it is. They do get arousal from it, but they're not it's not necessarily a physical attraction to the child. They can be, but often it'll be the whole power, and the person is vulnerable.
Oh,
so if that makes sense. So they're usually the ones that will offend on babies will usually be the sadistic type. So, but yeah, so those were the logos we were trained to look for. And then if you bring up Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity, so that's their logo. But I think I sent you the website as well, eh?
I have the link showing the website. I could pull up their actual website as well.
Bring it up a bit more. Yeah. So if you look, so their main logo is like a triangle, and it has that swirl that you have.
It looks like a fingerprint as well, which is kind of creepy.
Yeah. So and then if you look just underneath, it's the hearts within the hearts, and that's right on their main website. So the thing with that is, could it be a coincidence that there's one that looks similar? Yes, but the fact that they have two on their website makes it less likely to be a mistake.
Yeah, it's like two of the four, right? These are the actual symbols.
Yeah.
And this is an example from the RCMP. This is like
this is from the FBI declassified documents.
Wow.
So this is what we were trained to look for.
Right.
So if you go on NAMBLA, and you look at, you can actually see the entire FBI declassified document. There's so much. I bring up a lot of it in the video. So if anyone hasn't watched the video, I highly recommend you do.
So just for the sake of people that haven't watched it, who are NAMBLA? What is NAMBLA? And like, what's the status of them, and when did they get started?
So NAMBLA is called the North American Man-Boy Love Association. So they're a pedophile activist group. So they fight different for different change. So one of the things is lowering the age of consent. They want to make it legal to be able to have sexual acts with children. And it says the Man Boy Love Association, but they also do it for female on male offenders. And I'm also just going to add a quick information here that people don't know. They think that female pedophiles are very rare, or female sex offenders are very rare. They're not as rare as you would think. We were trained that it's about 1 in 4. So for every 4 sex offenders, one of them is a female. Right. So I just want to add that even though Man Boy Love Association is clearly a specific name, they also fight for the rights of pedophiles that are female as well.
And there's a bit of like the taboos are different as well. So like we all heard about stories where a teacher maybe in her 30s or 40s gets involved with a young student in like early high school, something like that. And then, you'll have the, people online saying, oh, whatever, I was hot for my teacher and all that stuff, but not realizing that if people actually engage in these types of relationships, there's an emotional bond, weird thing that shouldn't take place between people in that position above them as their teacher, person of authority, and a child, someone who's not fully emotionally developed and all of that. So
see, that one's the perfect example of that whole arousal manipulation. So they say, well, you can't rape the unwilling. It's like the mentality that they use for men, right? Because you need to have arousal in order for the sexual act to occur. But it's a perfect example of where they'll say, well, you were aroused, so you must have wanted it. That's the sick mind that these pedophiles will use. So that's a perfect example of one of those where they'll say, well, are you sure you didn't want it? Right? So doesn't mean just because there's arousal that there is consent. So, and that's something that I think there needs to be more taught about that with children, that your natural body's reaction doesn't mean you want it, but the physical reaction of the body is it's very hard to stop that arousal, even if you don't want it, even if you're afraid. And that's something that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to realize. And it's a subject that's kept secret too much. And I think that it would be good if that was to change. So, but yeah, that's a perfect example of a female sex offenders, but there's also other ones as well. And it's funny when, not funny as in haha, but weird when you find offenders. One of the cases that we were studying is the one where the male was caught offending the lady's children, and they just assume, well, she wasn't involved, right? There's that assumption that the mother would never do that to her child. And in this particular case, she was actually the offender and he was just going along with it. So it just goes to show that we don't know these people and we shouldn't put them in a box. And I think if we were to open those boxes more and let the public know on who we're dealing with and who might be a threat to your children, there'd be a lot less sexual abuse happening in the world. So, and that's what I'm trying to bring light to. Sorry, this is heavy.
I know it's super heavy, but I wanted to have this conversation because I think people need to be aware of this, that these people are out there and they're active, and it's not like something that's this obscure, 1 in a million chance or something like that. There are many of them out there, and they try to put themselves in positions where they'll have access to children. And there's the famous stories of the clergy or Catholic Church. Everyone goes right to the Catholic Church stories because that was prevalent for some time, because predators would go to that environment because that's where they would have access to these children. Now that the suspicion's raised, I'm assuming that the predators are not going to that environment. They're trying to find a different environment for their predation. And this brings us to our public school system.
Well, so the public school system's always been one where you'll find a lot of sex offenders. If you knew the number of teachers, and I'm not trying to say that to say every teacher's a sex offenders, but sex offenders will groom themselves in order to get in positions where they can have unsupervised access to children. So that's still happening in a lot of churches. So they'll groom themselves to get diplomas like bachelor's in teaching or youth pastor, any position that they can have unsupervised access to children. So coaches are very high rates of offenders, teachers, because you have unsupervised access to children. Youth pastors, you'll see that, or just pastor as a whole. Churches are still very much a target of these pedophiles because there's a prime, how would I say this? There's a prime, and I'm not anti-church, I am a Christian. So this is actually, my next video will be addressing sexual abuse in the church. The reason it's such an ideal place for them to hide, there's a lot of trust between parents and other adults. There's a lot of situations where there is unsupervised overnight access, like you'll have kids camps, things like that, as well as youth groups, things like that. So there is an automatic, well, if he's a Christian, he wouldn't be doing this, right? Because it goes against biblical principle to the highest level.
Right.
But it's still, the church still needs to do more to protect their congregation. That's what I'm gonna be addressing next in my video. It's not like an accusation. It's more, let's do better and let's do what we can to protect kids. But the school actually was one of the biggest. There's actually more sexual abuse that occurs in school than there is in the church. You wouldn't hear that, right? Because they always say that it's the opposite. But if you actually do searches as to who's been charged and caught, it's actually higher in the school than it is in the Catholic Church. So it's something like, I remember a stat that was put out that it was one of the biggest, that and extracurricular activities is the biggest threat. Now, the schools have come a long way in putting policies to prevent that from happening. However, they're backtracking on those policies, I believe, when they're implementing policies that are normalizing keeping secrets from parents. So anytime you allow a teacher to have a relationship with a child that's keeping secret from parents, it creates almost like an unhealthy dynamic that will be a prime location for pedophiles to be able to offend. So, and you'll see things like, and these are all things my offender would say, nobody knows you like I do, Nadine. Nobody understands you like I do. Don't tell your parents. Your parents wouldn't get this. Things like that. Those are the same kind of language that you're hearing teachers use when it comes to this gender, any child who comes out as trans. And I'm also going to add, trans kids are actually at the really high increased level. Trans and LGBTQ kids are actually at higher risk of child sexual abuse and sexual abuse in their teens as well. They're at increased risk just because of their vulnerable state. They're more likely to be isolated. They're more likely to be abused. And they've often been already sexually abused. And if you've already been sexually abused, you're actually at greater risk of getting sexually abused again, as well as raped in your adulthood. So those are just facts. I'm not saying personal opinions. I'm saying facts as to what I was trained as. So, but yeah, so when you think about that, the school's now going backwards with protecting children from sexual abuse. Except in Saskatchewan, we're seeing headway.
Well, and
for pushback.
New Brunswick as well. So New Brunswick was the first to make headway in that direction and say that, no, if children are going to be, they're not poo-pooing the fact that people want to identify as like whatever magical unicorn fairies or whatever they want to be. They're saying that if they want to do that, it's the child, and the child decided this, right? Because everything happens in a vacuum when it comes to children. They get their influences from somewhere, right? So they get the influences, and then the kid decides, oh, I wanna associate my name with like these other pronouns, Zimzer or whatever, right? The parents need to be informed, because that's exactly the thing. The big the big fear for parents is these teachers that have this concept of, it's just between you and me, Jack. You know, you don't have to tell even your parents about this. I understand you. One of the words that I keep hearing from these teachers that are complaining on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, they're saying, I'm not going to out my students to parents. It's a dangerous position for them. Now, if a position's dangerous, because you know, there could be, here's a devil's advocate argument. You know, what if the parents are dangerous? They're going to beat the kid. Now, in those situations,
actually, this policy is actually helping. It's giving the child an opportunity to come forward. If a child's actually afraid at home, and you say, hey, I'm going to have to tell your parents, it's giving the child an opportunity to actually disclose that they don't feel safe at home. Without this policy, it wouldn't, right?
Right.
So, and there is policy in place as well when a child discloses that they feel unsafe at home. So, and as a police officer, I've been called to some of those calls. And if the abuse has already happened, police get called. But if it's suspected, social services gets called. And they're trained to deal with that situation. A teacher is not a counselor. They're not trained on how to interview children without asking leading questions. They're not supposed to interrogate children either. They're supposed to call the proper authority and they do the investigation. So they can actually impede an investigation by doing that. So,
right,
but yeah.
Right. So, I wasn't aware of that. If they ask too many questions, then they could actually become an impedance and maybe lose a case or something like that along those lines, I guess.
It'd be coaching a child.
Oh, it'd be coaching the child. So a legal team would argue that.
Yeah, it could be that when the child comes forward and discloses what happened, they can use it as defense. Well, the teacher asked these leading questions. So a child will always want to answer the way that he thinks you're going to be pleased with the answer. So it's one of the things we're taught when we're interviewing children, never ask leading question. You don't ask, did mommy do this to you? That's a leading question.
Right.
If they think you want to say yes, then they're going to say yes. So a child's very apt to answering in the way they want adults to. The same thing can be applied if a teacher asks, do you feel like you want to be a girl?
I was just thinking
if it's a boy.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. And then you're already going in that direction. So we were taught as a police officer, when we interview children, that you don't ask leading questions. You would first start discussion like good touch, bad touch. So hugs are good touch. Bad touch is hitting, touches that hurt, and then there's secret touches. Things like that. That's how you start. You have a whole process. You draw a little kid and you don't give any indication as to what kind of answer you want. You're very careful. But again, we were trained to do that. If you're not trained to interview children, you're not qualified to do it. You can't do the interview as a police officer. You have to have that specific training in order to interview the children. If not, you got to bring an officer in from another detachment to do it, because if you don't do it right, you're ruining the entire case. And teachers are even less qualified
Absolutely
to do those types of interviews. So yeah, when you go back and you look at the narrative that's being pushed opposing these policies, I haven't found yet one that's justified in not telling parents. Like even the whole, well, children will commit suicide at a higher rate and they might do it even more if you tell the parents. Just the simple fact that a child identifies as LGBTQ increases the risk of suicide. That's just a fact. That's just a stat. Now, children, for the most part, when they commit suicide, it's extremely rare. In fact, I don't know of a single one that has occurred in school other than school shootings. The most majority of the time it occurs is at home. So there's several situations. Now you have parents who don't know their children are struggling, potentially struggling with mental health, and then the school's not letting them know. Like I had a child who was deemed medium to high risk as a young child, as an 11-year-old. And when we found out, the school called me, we developed a plan Okay, well, are there firearms in the house? Okay, no, they're all locked up. We're good. Okay, we started discussing, do we need to lock up knives? What do I need to do as a parent to get that my child mental health? So is it urgent enough that I need to bring them to emerge? Maybe go to the Dubay Center, which is like a mental health hospital here. These are all discussions that occurred because I was brought into that conversation in order to keep my child safe. And the school can't send a child to emerge. The school can't make a referral to a psychologist.
You need
all
consent.
gets done.
You need consent for all that.
You need parental consent.
Mhm.
And it's something that gets done outside of the school. It's something that gets done by parents. Just the idea that a parent's not going to be notified of something that increases the risk of suicide, to me, I find that completely shocking that a teacher would even go to that point of making that call.
Well,
I think it's completely dangerous.
They're of the belief that if a kid is, they're saying automatically that believe the kid believes that they're in the wrong body, for example, that they identify as something else than their birth sex, and they want to identify. If they don't do that, they're at risk of suicide. But they give no where are the statistics that allowing them to change their gender in just like in name only. For example, some of them are just, changing the gender and it just changes how they
transition.
Yeah, there's no actual transition. And then there are children who do actual transitions. Is there data to suggest that they are alleviated of their suicidality? Is there suggestion that it increases or decreases? What do we have on data on that?
Well, they're saying that there is data, but if you go and actually look into the study, they're not actually good quality studies. The good quality studies that are coming out, you're seeing this in, I think it's Sweden, that the risk of suicide ideation actually increases after transition. So those are studies that you're seeing come out in Europe right now, and you're seeing them backtrack into all of these policies that so they're a few years ahead of us. So they're retracking their policies and actually stopping puberty blockers, stopping transition of children. They're just letting them go through puberty. And then
wasn't there a hospital in
behind.
Britain that actually they closed the hospital? Like they absolutely closed it?
Yeah, because they were getting too many lawsuits. Yeah, they shut it down. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know, this particular subject, I don't know the data and the stats very much, but I just remember listening to some. Yeah, that's not an area of my expertise.
Fair enough.
Expertise. I have a personal experience as a child, as a confused child, because of my sexual trauma and sexual abuse. When I went to school, I dressed like a boy. I wanted to be a boy. I had only boyfriends because I didn't want to be seen as someone they would be attracted to, because it re-triggered my trauma. So I actually, if I went to school then in today's age, I would have transitioned. If someone had said, hey, you can be a boy, I would have likely jumped on it out of sheer desperation, because I hadn't healed my trauma. And it wasn't until I hit puberty that changed, where I started liking boys. But before then, I actually would have been one of those. I actually dressed in boy clothes.
But it was a coping mechanism because of the trauma that you suffered.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're seeing that. So I'm not saying every child who's gender confused has that same situation. That was just my particular situation. But you're seeing a lot of children who are struggling or confused. They also, it's not a secret that they also have other mental health condition at a really high rate. So whether it's autism, ADHD, or anxiety or OCD, so they are an increased risk. But for me, that was the situation. So I really, really believe that we should be waiting till a child hits puberty to see if that child just decides on its own, or it might just follow the natural course. I don't think, and socially transitioning, actually stops that, because if you make a mistake and if you make the wrong decision, there can be a lot of shame attached to you transitioning back, where you say, well, I've already told everyone I'm going to look like a fool, right?
Yes.
So socially transitioning can actually create that situation where they're just going to keep going, because going back is going to be so embarrassing. It's going to be so shameful, right? So I think even socially transitioning should be done with medical care professional to try to determine if maybe there's not something else that's causing it. And if there is like previous trauma, maybe try to heal that first before you go to that level. But this whole
And then there's the social,
catch-all, we're just going to push it.
then there's the social
Yeah.
contagion issue of it. Now, I've read Dr. Deborah So's book, The End of Gender, and that's I got a lot of my factoids from that. There's been she's a sexologist, and she actually got kicked out of academia for her opinions on this early in the development of this social contagion, for lack of a better term, when it comes to this. And I think for what she wrote in there is a lot of females, they will, because you mentioned let them go through puberty. A lot of females, it's because of puberty. Puberty is such a hard thing to go through, especially for girls, that they reject what's happening to them, and they see this new social contagion as a way out. Oh, I could not have to deal with my period. I could not have to deal with these things if I just transitioned. And it's not how it works. It doesn't fix any of that stuff. But it's a way to I don't know, for lack of a better word, but groom kids in to accepting these things or getting involved in it. And then, like you said, once they're involved, then they feel embarrassed to get out of it. But despite that, there's so many people going through detransition nowadays. This is now a bigger phenomenon every day.
Yeah. No, it is, and you're seeing it more and more. And I think you're going to see it a lot more now that the numbers are even higher. Like in Saskatchewan, we had a secretly recorded audio that was released between a principal and a parent, where the principal says, we've surveyed the kids in the school, and 32% of the kids identify as LGBTQ between grade 7 and grade 12. And the insane thing about this audio was that the principal was using it to justify all the LGBTQ things that they were pushing in the school, without recognizing that there's something deeply wrong with that stat. 32%, that's almost 1 in 3 kids. And they're not even recognizing, okay, something is happening in our schools, because that's not reflected in everyday society. And if we're going to look at something that might increase mental health risk for children, that now you have 32% of children at increased mental health risk, they're not even looking into it. But it's I don't know what the solution is. I'm glad that Scott Moe in our province is taking the step he's taken. And I'm hoping there's going to be further steps taken where they start looking at the data and actually doing some studies to see is this helping children, or is this actually hurting them? What's happening in the classroom that you now have? Is it a social contagion? And if so, what is causing it? Is it happening just on social media, or is it happening as well in the classroom with specific teachers or specific clubs or things like that? So I don't know what the answer is. I just know, at least in Saskatchewan, we're going in the right direction.
So I'm drawing a blank on the doctor's name, but there was a doctor in Canada a number of decades ago. I believe this was in the 70s, where
Kinsey, I think.
Was it Kinsey that had the two children? It was twin boys, and one of the boys had a botched circumcision and lost basically most of his penis. And because of this, they decided that they were going to allow the kid to identify as a girl from an early age, and then just convince the kid that the kid was a girl, and raise the child as a girl with her twin brother in this this whole scenario. Now, a lot of the work that this doctor came out with is stuff that's, yeah, I'm getting people in the chat saying, yeah, it was Kinsey, but it was a lot of the stuff that came out that a lot of these the gender ideologues are citing. They cite from that case and then try to play it off as like, look, it was a success. You're able to change your gender and move on with your life if something happens or what have you. Now, what they don't do is
it wasn't a success.
Well, yeah, they don't do is they don't go past adolescence, where it actually became a huge problem for this individual, and eventually led to the person finding out the truth that they were not a girl and that they always believed they were a boy, despite what they were being told, and that the person transitioned back to identifying as a male, but the damage had already been done, and then it ultimately it ended in suicide for that individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe one was suicide and the other one was drug overdose, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody might know better in the chat, but I think we're just discussing that, my husband and I, and yeah, that was, I believe, in Manitoba was where he was from. But there's more, the gender ideology is more than just that specific case. If you look at the queer theory, I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but queer theory itself that pushes a lot of this gender ideology, and it's also what's in SOGI in BC. If you look at the founding document for queer theory, it's actually like 50% pro-pedophilia. It's basically trying to deconstruct society's norm, and anything that goes against societal norm is what they call queer or queer theory. So, and they want to normalize pedophilia in there. If you read it, they kind of compare it as well to pedophilia is just the same as having sexual preferences, the same as like having food preferences, like if you like spicy food. The whole idea behind it is just so ridiculous. I think Gail Rubin is the one who wrote it, and it's called Thinking Sex. You can actually go online and read the entire thing. I think it's like 40 page. I find it's awful, but in the same mindset that they have, they think that the only reason children are, no, I'm not saying Gail per se, but that whole same kind of mindset that's trying to push the normalization of sexual deviancy, that whole mindset, they say that the only reason that child sexual abuse is traumatic is because society makes it not okay. And if society was to normalize child sexual abuse, it wouldn't be traumatic for the child. Like they actually have that mindset, which is so sick. But a lot of people push that. Nembla was one of those people that pushed that. So they
well, I mean, just to argue against that really quick, I mean, it was socially acceptable to beat your children for a long time, and that didn't change the fact that it was traumatic for those kids.
Well, I can tell you, even as a child that was 8 years old, I didn't know anything about sex, and I knew what was happening to me was wrong. I knew in my core what was happening was wrong. So, and I felt very traumatized. So even that mindset that it's because society says it's not okay, I didn't know what society thought because we haven't talked about it, right? That whole mindset, I think it's a lie. But I also think it's a lie that potentially some of them have told themselves to cope with some of the abuse that they have gone through. Some people deal with trauma or heal from trauma very differently. We kind of talked about that, me and one of my friends who's a psychologist now, but she's a former cop trained the same way I am. We were talking about the way that sometimes people heal from trauma. And I'm saying specific situations, a generalization. Not everyone fits in these categories, and you can move from one category to the other. But there's one way where they become like a hero mentality. So they're the kinds who want to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. So they'll become social workers, police officers.
Like
so
yourself,
they'll be like, we need to avoid this happening to anyone else, and we're going to do everything we can to stop that from happening. Yeah. But you have another type that will try to normalize what happened to them so that it's not so traumatic. So you'll often
Do those
see the
people
ones who were
become the perpetrators of?
not always, but yes, some will become. And I'm not saying it's a huge percentage, because I don't want people to think if they become abused that they're going to become an abuser. It's a small percentage, but yes, that there is the kind that will normalize the abuse, so that, and then they will often, the ones who fit in that category are more likely to become an offender themselves. So they kind of morph their whole reality, again, the world mindset, that it's only traumatic because society thinks it's traumatic, right? So that's how they heal and make it less awful. So those are some of the ones, but then
that makes the whole world evil. That makes the whole world evil, in my opinion. I mean, it's such a tragic thing for someone who's been victimized to then have to frame the whole world as a world of victims, the world of trauma, and a world of predation in order to cope with what happened to them. I think that's, if you think of it in that sense, I mean, it makes it so sad for me to believe that this is how people's minds are coping with it.
I think it makes me sad, but it also, I know this is going to sound weird, but it also gives me a form of compassion for those people, because I'm thankful that's not how my brain wired itself to deal with what happened to me. I'm thankful that I went the other way, but it gives me compassion for those people, almost like hurt people.
Yes.
You hear that a lot, and it doesn't mean you can't change that you can't fix that reality. Sometimes people can go from that category to actually the hero category. I've seen that happen. But it makes, and not every sex offenders has been abused. I was trained that there's a high rate, but they also can lie, so to gain sympathy. So it's not all of them, but there is that category. And then there's another category that I think we see a lot of people go into, where they're called like the silent category. So they keep it in, never really tell anyone, and just try to forget it ever happened. So they will often go two routes, where it'll come out later on in life when they're 30, 40 years old, or they'll go the route of, you'll see a lot of people struggling with addiction, struggling with any type of addiction, whether it's drug, alcohol, sex addiction. You'll see people who will very often in victims of child sexual abuse, they'll minimize sex, put less value as to just devalue it, so it's not a big deal. So they'll be more promiscuous. You'll see them become either porn actors or strippers or things like that. So I have a huge issue with the porn industry on its own, just because of everything I've been trained. And I know the women that are in there have often been sexually abused or victimized, and there's a lot of youth as well in the porn industry. That was one of the things we were taught in our training, where it says barely legal, well, they're quite often not legal. So people don't really know how bad it is out there. The world is evil, but there's also a lot of good. There's a lot of good in the world, and sometimes we see all the evil, but I like to focus on what God is doing, and just I guess I look at my life and think of how I was able to overcome, and something that was so awful that happened to me has actually been like a blessing. Now that I look at it, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now and having helped the people that I've helped if that hadn't happened. I probably would have gone a complete different direction. So
you wouldn't be the hero that you are today.
Well, I'm not saying I'm a hero.
Well, I would say it. You've saved people from predation, future predation. You've helped out people. This information that you're putting out on your Twitter page and getting out to people is so invaluable for people to become aware of this. And thankful right now that there's a movement to protect innocence in Canada, at least at this moment. We see a movement in the United States as well as in England and other Western countries. I know in other places in the world, they just don't tolerate this kind of thing. But there's a push, and obviously through organizations like you said, NAMBLA and all of this, trying to infiltrate school systems. This is where parents are really concerned, and so I was part of the march for the 1 million person march to save children last month. There's another one coming up it's next weekend. Not sure what's going to happen with it. I'm going to go down to Vancouver and check it out anyway. So we'll see how people end up with the organization and see. I know that there's all that stuff that's happened with Israel and Palestine. So it was largely organized by Muslims at the time. So I don't know what's going on because of that. So we'll find out.
I think even before that, people were like, "Oh, another one already." I think people thought it would be like a yearly thing. Like I know I was asked to help in Saskatchewan with the one, but we've got our AGM coming up with our organization. I'm like, I committed to helping till the 21st, but I couldn't do it any further on. We've got big plans for our organization going forward. But yeah, I don't know if there's some in Saskatchewan. I know there's some in Ontario. There might be one in Regina, but that so far that I heard whispers that there's one in Regina, but I'm not sure where they're at. But yeah,
there's just
we
so
can't
much
go in the discussion of
Yeah.
Israel either because
No.
that's a can of worms that people don't want open. So
it's a whole can of worms. I understand. I dabbled in it this week,
Yeah.
and I just it's not my fight. I'm not getting into that one. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But I really can't thank you enough for putting up this fight, and especially from a position of someone who's very knowledgeable about not just because you were a victim of a crime that was perpetrated against you. You sought justice. You got justice. And then that was able to that brought you to the position where you were able to start healing from it. But not only that, but to put yourself into the role of someone who would educate yourself and then go to the RCMP, become part of a formal police investigative unit to go after these people, and then be able to go from that role to educate people on what some of these telltale signs of these organizations are, what to look out for, what kind of behavior to watch out for, and this is largely for parents, especially the viewers of my channel that will watch this, and they'll be able to go, okay, kids, these are the things. Like, what kind of recommendations would you give to parents to tell their kids just to know what to look for in predators and to be able to discuss this with their parents?
I'll get to that, but I'm just going to clarify. I didn't actually work in the ICE unit.
Oh, okay.
I took the training to get into it.
You took
so
the training.
I just don't want people to think that I actually got into it. I had to medically retire from the force. I have a fainting condition, so fight or flight can activate it. So I had to, unfortunately, medically retire. Thankfully, I didn't have situations that where it happened, but the condition was getting worse. I even became wheelchair bound at one point, but
sorry to hear
it's
that.
cured now. We found out what it was. It was a thyroid issue, so I'm cured now, but I wouldn't go back anyways. But
fair enough.
It's I've got another fight, I guess a bigger fight coming up. But yeah, things to look for. I'm actually going to be doing a video coming up teaching parents or on some of the things to look for. So it depends which age as well. So some of the things is sexual knowledge beyond their age appropriateness. So that would be a really big red flag. So again, I have issues with early sexualization of children.
Yes.
Because then you're less likely to catch on this if the entire classroom is learning about it. Early sexual knowledge actually can also increase risk of children offending on other children. So that's another thing that I don't like when they're teaching kids things that they shouldn't be teaching kids when it comes to sexual education before age appropriateness, because they don't understand the consequences of their actions when they're really young. But
teen
anyways,
pregnancy, things
so
like
that's
that, or yeah.
Well, or even if you're teaching like a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old, they might want to act out what they're learning on younger kids. So, well, you'll often see when a child's been abused, or if a child is abusing, that's a really high red flag that that child has been abused. So if you learn of a youth abusing a younger child, so that's one of the things to look for. Urinating or defecating their pants at a younger age, at older age as well. Bedwetting is a tell. I remember one of the ones that stood out is speech impediment. It was actually one of the things that we learned that it's not an indication. I'm saying these are things that can be like a red flag, but one of the things was speech impediment. If you know, sex offenders aren't just the guys that come in a white van. Right. They'll often be like, or the creepy guys that you just think, oh, they're really creepy. Some are very charismatic. Some are very well-liked people. They're very used to manipulating their way into trusting positions. So sometimes if you see someone who takes like a really big interest in your child that's a stranger to you, that would be a red flag. One of the things that they do that's also a red flag that parents might not know, often an offender will physically touch your child in front of you. And it's a way to teach the child that physical touching is okay because mom is seeing this and mom is allowing it. So they'll hug more than, or they'll touch the shoulder longer than they should. They'll kind of test that in the child in front of the parents. So if you have an adult that's just unnaturally touching your child, that's one of the things that people don't even know that they'll do.
Confrontation would be good in that situation then, right? So just
what?
Well, okay, that's enough.
Or
okay, we're gonna go over here, kid. Enough touching.
Or even just keeping it in your back pocket. That person did that in front of me, so maybe I wouldn't let them go sleep over at their house. And another thing, if it sounds too good to be true, it's likely too good to be true. If someone's like being way too kind and saying, oh, I'll watch your kid. Oh, you're a single mom and you work a lot. You can't afford childcare. I'll watch your kids. So like, you got to understand, in order for them to offend, they have to have unsupervised access to your children. Yeah. Okay, I'll go back though. It doesn't mean if there's two people that it's not going to happen. Pedophiles will often hang around with other pedophiles, whether it's female or male. That's something to know too. So if, like, let's say there's a pedophile that's been caught in a school, there is a chance there's other ones in the school. Or same with the church. If there's a pedophile caught in a church or in an organization, there's a chance. It's not always, it's just an increased risk, because they'll say, oh, this is a place, come here, this is a place that's good. So the same with those logos that I talked about earlier on that website. I just want to add a very important detail. Even if that organization doesn't know what those mean, just the simple fact that they're on their website will be a place. This will attract pedophile to that organization, because it sends a signal that this is a pedophile friendly organization. So they use these logos to find each other. Right. So just the fact that it's on there, you can guarantee there will be some in that organization, or they'll be working close with that organization. But there's also, so there's that one, not just a tip. There's also Wisdom to Action that works with them, Planned Parenthood. And they also have like a youth program where they team up a trans youth with an adult youth or a gay youth with an adult youth. So when you look at everything they're doing and NAMBLA's goals and missions, they're checking a lot of boxes. So sorry, I've got so much information. I could just be talking about this for hours.
No, I know, absolutely.
I don't even know where to go. If you haven't watched the video, watch the video.
I want to get to some of these super chats. There's a few super chats that came in, people asking questions.
Sure.
First off, Newbie431 gifting 20 memberships to the channel. Amazing. Thank you so much. Steve's Hyde with a $10 super chat says, not much to say this week, but here's my weekly report. Can you remind us who the guest is and what she does?
Nadine Ness. Okay, so I am a former cop. I've been bringing light and awareness to a lot of things that's happening with the schools. I'm trained in profiling sex offenders, so I'm going to be bringing a lot more information forward, as well as to things to look for. I run a nonprofit organization called Unified Grassroots. We have between 60,000, I think around 60,000 members and followers with our organization. I don't know. I think I covered it.
I think you covered it. So
I'm on Twitter.
You're on Twitter.
I tweet a lot and I raise a lot of awareness. I guess I do a lot of investigative type journalism. So I'm very active in Saskatchewan, but I'm also a little bit active in Alberta. So I might be working a little bit more with BC too. We're trying to put together teams to form a group. It'd be nice if BC had a group like Unified Grassroots where every kind of group would come under, because you guys would be way more effective at influencing change when you have big numbers. Because big numbers kind of.
I'll talk to some people.
Yeah.
Because I live here in British Columbia, so I would love to get on board. I signed up for your newsletter. Everyone should go there. Unified Grassroots. Sign up for the newsletter anytime there's new news that comes out. Another super chat from Eat Me for $5 says, had Uncle Daniel become Aunt Daniel in the 80s. It took 3 years of psychiatric therapy before they transitioned him to her medically. And it was John Money. That was the person that we were talking about, not Kinsey. John Money was the case. He was the doctor in that case.
Okay, yeah, I think Kinsey was the one who worked with pedophiles, and he was saying like that 6-month-old baby could have 4 orgasms in a day. I don't know if you ever saw. I think Kinsey was that one.
Awful. I did hear about that once, and like what kind?
Yeah, they had like a. He had like a. Yeah, and there are sick people like that.
Which means that somebody attempted to do that. Like that's what's disgusting about that is they ran tests.
There was a child victim. Yeah. But see, he worked with pedophile. I think Kinsey's the same one where he came out with research on sexual activity, but I think his control, or not his control group, but the group he studied were actually people in prison. So it's not a reflection of society today. It was a very specific group.
Children are not in prison. Like I'm saying.
No. That was a different study. There was the ones on children. He worked with pedophiles. He said the pedophiles gave him that data. But
it's not really a reliable source.
I think Kinsey was a pedophile himself. So.
Well, that's probably a good conclusion. Ashley Cinnamon, it's just spelled in a different way, with the $399 super chat saying, "Get this woman on again. She needs to get out." And well, that's an open invitation. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley, for the very generous super chat in that case. And absolutely, you're welcome back anytime, Nadine. There's so much to cover on this topic that I don't like. We're just scratching the surface on this tonight, and really just kind of getting to know who you are and
profiles.
Well, we're just kind of getting to know who you are and what it is that you do, and then in a future discussion we can talk more in depth on like some of the things that you have worked on. We're kind of bouncing around all over the place this evening.
Yeah.
Which is it's normal for something a topic like this in a discussion for the first time like this. I think next time I have you on, what I'll do is I'll let everyone know like a week in advance that you're going to be on. I'll say watch the original podcast because we're leaving you behind if you don't catch up to where we're at, because that's that's where we need to go with it. And I really want to push this. And I know there's really good organizations around Canada that are doing good things. There's just not enough people that know about it. And if in any way I can add awareness to this issue, this is absolutely what I'd love to do with my platform, for sure. And, you know, let people know about Unified Grassroots, let people know about other organizations such as Blueprint for Canada. You know, people are looking out for children. They're putting a lot, we've been asleep for a long time, Nadine. We've all fell asleep.
It's been a long time in the making, right? We didn't realize what was happening until boom, they've gained access, right? And I think we're trying to play catch up, but I don't think people realize we were going to be where we're at today. And I think BC is a perfect example of that. Like, you're trying to take something out that's already been placed in. Thankfully, we were able to stop Soji from coming in before it did. But
it doesn't mean that it didn't. So here's the thing. When I went to the Million March last month, you know, we all know that the unions got heavily involved in the counter protest to that. QP for one, and QP represents the teachers in my area, and a lot of people's areas. But they sent out a letter or a mass email to all parents on the email list. Like, they had access to our email addresses because we have our children in schools, and they sent out a letter demonizing the parents that were going out and looking out for the best interests of their children, publicly to everyone else who has children in school. And then a few days later, I went to go to work. I think it was the very next day. And I ride my bike past the preschool where I sent my kid. 4-year-olds go to this preschool, and they had they brought out a brand new, I call it the exclusion flag. It's not the rainbow. It's the new one. It has the chevrons, and it has that little circle to represent, transgenders and whatever other representations. The circle apparently is intersex people, but none of that stuff is relevant to a 4-year-old that's going to just learn a bit of socialization a couple times a week, get to know other kids, maybe play in the sandbox, give mom a break for a couple of hours. Like, why is that there? That is, of all places. Like, I know that they're trying to teach teenagers this stuff, and then even getting into like younger grades, but 4 years old, really, it's that's where we're at.
I think it's like a virtue signaling thing, to be honest. Like, I think, like, even during the Million Person March, some of the schools around here, the teachers wore pride attire that day. Like, it's like this, like, I say that the woke agenda, or the leftist wokeists, will push whatever they can, however they can. And unfortunately, it's the people who are concerned from our side that hasn't been allowed to talk. So they've been able to do all of this uninhibited. Like, they get away with all of it. It won't stop until parents speak up against it. And do it in a respectful manner. But, like, I don't know if you complain to them, that preschool, or if other parents complain, but if you had every single parent saying, my kids doesn't need to see that, they're 4 years old, they don't need to learn about sexual preferences or gender stuff, they don't need to learn about all of that. It would, not saying you should or anything, but you don't want retaliation either, because it's your kids, right? And you're entrusting them. But yeah, I think you're going to start seeing parents push back a lot more as they get emboldened. And I think you need like a few to start. And then usually you'll have 1, 2, 3 start. It's like the analogy that I talk about. You're at a wedding, and you have your crazy uncle that goes on the dance floor, just makes an idiot of himself, and then everyone's just like laughing and watching. But then you'll have like one more person come and join him. And then when that third person comes and joins him, then everyone gets on the dance floor. That's what we need to happen. You need to have 3 brave parents to come forward,
And then everyone will feel comfortable to do it.
come. And I think that's what the Million Person March was. You had you had several of those parents come on the dance floor, and I think all the other ones are starting to be more brave. Like in Saskatchewan, we have a radio show, John Gormley. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like the biggest conservative voice in the province. And I was listening this morning that you can call in and be on the show. And yeah, all the parents are saying, yeah, we're in support of this. Like, I think 90% of the callers are in support of these changes. But if you listen to media, you would think that only 2-3% are in support when it's the majority of the province. And I think what you're doing is a perfect example of giving people that voice. And we need more people doing that, because the main narrative or the mainstream narrative is not giving them that voice. But I think you'll start seeing as your following grows. And that was the biggest thing with UG. I remember, like, when I messaged that mother, I thought there was going to be 5 of us, right? I thought we were the minority. I thought we were the only ones. And in 24 hours, 850 parents.
That's crazy. Oh, it's amazing. And I love it. It makes me feel so good, though. It's heartwarming.
And that's the thing. What it showed that day is we were the majority when we thought we were the minority.
Right.
And there was no way they were silencing us, because that we knew. And they knew that we knew. So the school, like, I'm not very well liked in the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation or
That's good. Board. That's good. That's a good thing. That's a badge of honor.
When they hear that I might be coming to a meeting, but I'm not mean. I'm not disrespectful. I'm very respectful, but I don't hold back. I don't hide the truth. I expose it. And when I do, it usually spreads like wildfire.
Yes.
I usually have a bigger reach than media does in the province, and I don't think they like that. So, but anyways, I'm going to keep doing it. So.
Well, I had a similar.
We need voices like ours.
Yeah, I had a similar circumstance. I just in my private life. So I went to that event. It was on a Wednesday. I took the day off. I came back the next day, and I was just talking about it with one of my colleagues, and then another colleague came. Wait, what were you doing on? You took the day off for what? I said, oh yeah, I went down to march with these parents that are against SOGI and against teachers being able to indoctrinate children and speak to them about sexual things without the parents' knowledge. And I had colleagues saying, oh, if I knew about that, I would have been there too. And share their experiences. And so I'm going on next Saturday. I'm going to go check out that one that's happening. And I said to some of the guys, oh, well, I'm going to be going to that thing. I got a whole van. Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming. No problem. I'll be there. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. So yeah, more people are getting on board with it. And it's amazing. Yeah. Like you said, that goofy uncle. Yeah. Sometimes the goofy uncle is just, he knows how to swallow his pride and get everybody else up on that dance floor. And that's what we need to do sometimes, is just have the guts to stand up first. It really is amazing. Nadine, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Of course, I'm gonna republish this again, not just as a live, as a video itself, and I'll make sure all of your links are in the description down below, where people can get your videos, your social network, as well as Unified Grassroots. Sign up again for the newsletter. Is there anything else that you can put out there where people can find you?
Yeah, so the website's unifiedgrassroots.com. So not United. There's someone imitating us. So don't use.
Yeah.
No, you didn't say United. I think you said Unified.
Okay.
But I'm just warning people, don't put United. There is a website out there imitating our organization called United Grassroots. So we're dealing with it. But anyways, unifiedgrassroots.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter. We're on Facebook as well. Unified Grassroots. We have a public page that you can follow, but we also have a private Facebook group. And also the video, if some of your listeners don't have Twitter, because I've posted it to Twitter, it's pinned to my Twitter profile, Nadine G. Ness, at Nadine G. Ness, but it's also on YouTube at, it's called The Nadine Ness Show. So I have that video as well as an old one. There's going to be more coming as well. So I'm going to do one on queer theory in 2 weeks. I don't know if you know his name. Is it Terry Jensen? He did Queer Theory Jeopardy. Have you seen that video?
No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to send it to you and you can play it on your next episode.
Okay.
So it's really, really good, and it goes really quickly into queer theory and the pedophilia links. He's phenomenal. So he's supposed to come on my show in November. So I'm going to start having guests.
Oh, beautiful.
I just figuring this out as we go. But yeah, there's going to be more videos on that, as well as videos on how to make your church safer for your congregation, for children, things like that. And then also what parents to look for and stuff, teaching parents how to prevent, what kind of conversations to have with their kids,
yes,
to prevent sexual abuse, things like that. So we really want to equip parents, because one thing I notice, we're dealing with a lot of sexual deviancy in our schools, in society, but there's a root cause of all of that. And if we can get at the root cause of it, we might have a lot less people who are struggling and traumatized, dealing with trauma and stuff in the future. But anyways, that's how you get a hold of my organization.
Perfect. I'll make sure that everyone has all the details and the links in the description down below where they can find you. Stay on the line. We're going to end this stream here.
Sure.
And I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and joining us for this conversation. It's amazing. I can't thank everyone enough for all the support for this platform, bringing this, making this all available to all of us. And I'm glad that I just fell into the position to be the host of this and make this work. And I can't thank everybody enough. A special thanks to everyone who gave super chats this evening. All of that stuff goes into improving what we're doing here and bringing more shows to everyone, more content to consume, and more stuff that they can learn along the lines of this. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next week, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trying.